tuning retrieval, overlap, filters, re-rankers. Let's talk about the moment when RAG looks correct but still gives bad answers. This is where AWS separates people who build demos from people who ship production systems. If you understand this, you stop blaming the model forever. Imagine this. A nuclear power plant builds an AI assistant trained on its safety manual, thousands of pages, life-critical procedures, zero tolerance for guessing. Engineers ask questions like, what steps must be taken before reactor shutdown? Which supervisor approves emergency cooling? What happens if pressure exceeds threshold X? The system already uses Titan embeddings, a vector store, RAG. And yet, answers are sometimes incomplete. Steps are missing. Procedures get mixed. Nothing looks broken. This is day 13 territory. Let's start with the quietest hero in retrieval, overlap. Overlap simply means repeating a small portion of text between chunks. Why does this matter? Because meaning doesn't end cleanly at chunk boundaries. Here's what goes wrong without overlap. One chunk says, before reactor shutdown, the supervisor must verify pressure levels and confirm coolant flow. The next chunk says, cooling system activation requires approval from the chief engineer. If a question spans both ideas, retrieval may grab only one chunk and miss a critical step. Now add overlap. The second chunk repeats part of the first, verify pressure levels and confirm coolant flow. Cooling system activation requires approval from the chief engineer. Now either chunk contains enough context to answer correctly. This is why overlap exists. Exam rule to remember. Overlap is usually 10 to 20% of chunk size. Overlap slightly increases storage, but it dramatically improves recall and reduces hallucinations. If the question mentions missing steps, partial answers, or incomplete context, the fix is increase overlap. Next, metadata filters. Filters decide which chunks are even allowed to be retrieved. Think of them as relevance control and access control combined. Back to the nuclear plant. The manual includes Reactor A procedures, Reactor B procedures, training examples, old versions. An engineer asks, what is the shutdown process for Reactor A? Without filters, the system might retrieve Reactor B steps, training material, outdated procedures. With filters, retrieval is restricted to reactor equals a document type equals emergency version equals latest. Now the system can't even see the wrong documents. This is exam critical. If the question mentions authorization, departments, versions, access control, or wrong documents being retrieved, the answer is metadata filtering in the vector store. Not prompting, not guardrails, filtering. Now let's address a common mistake. When answers are bad, people say, let's increase top K, from 3 to 10, from 10 to 20. This usually makes things worse. More chunks means more noise, more confusion, higher cost, more hallucination. AWS wants you to know this. Precision beats volume. Which brings us to re-rankers. A re-ranker is a second, smarter pass over retrieved chunks. Here's how it works. First, vector search retrieves top K chunks, fast but approximate. Then, a re-ranker rescores those chunks more carefully and keeps only the best ones. Think of vector search as a fast scanner. Re-rankers are quality inspectors. In the nuclear plant example, vector search might retrieve a shutdown overview, cooling system approval, a Reactor B emergency drill, a training example. The re-ranker pushes the actual Reactor A shutdown steps to the top and drops the noise. Exam keywords to listen for: improve precision, better relevance ordering, reduce noise, post-retrieval scoring. Those words point to re-rankers. Now here's the exam gold tuning order. AWS expects you to think like this. First, tune chunk size and overlap. Then apply metadata filters. Then consider hybrid search. Then add re-rankers. Only after all of that do you even think about changing the model. If you jump straight to use a bigger model, you fail the reasoning test. Let's anchor this to AWS services. Correct answers usually include Titan embeddings v2 for embeddings, OpenSearch serverless for vector and hybrid search, metadata fields for filtering, Bedrock knowledge bases for managed retrieval, Claude Sonnet for final answer generation, a re-ranking layer for relevance refinement. Now the traps, read these carefully. Increasing temperature never fixes retrieval. Fine-tuning never fixes wrong documents. Adding more documents rarely helps accuracy. Guardrails do not improve relevance. When answers are wrong, the fix is almost always retrieval tuning, not generation tricks. Here's the decision table your brain should auto-load. If steps are missing, increase overlap. If wrong documents appear, add metadata filters. If there's too much noise, lower top K and add a re-ranker. If relevance is vague, hybrid search. If hallucinations appear, fix retrieval first. If you remember one sentence, remember this. If the answer is wrong, the problem is almost always retrieval, not the LLM. That sentence alone will save you multiple exam questions. Final self-test. A safety assistant retrieves correct documents, but answers are incomplete and mixed procedures. What do you tune first? Chunk overlap and metadata filters. That's day 13 mastered.